The second week of VCT Champions 2024 has provided us with some insane upsets, including the tournament favorites and favorites of the home crowd, Gen.G, going out against Sentinels in the group stage. Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel, and today we are recapping the last 10 matches of the VCT Champions 2024 tournament. The second week is almost over. We have 2 matches left that happened tonight, but I figured I would get the other ones out of the way. Haven't had time this week to do this video, but we're doing it now, and then I'll make a smaller video on the other 2 that happened tonight tomorrow. This is the board we're starting with. We have 6 matches here, and then the other 4 on the second board. So if you're looking for Sentinels against Gen.G, I am talking about that one in this video. Just look at the chapters. So with all that said, let's get right into it, starting with Team Heretics versus Gen.G. This is the first loss on the international stage that Gen.G has had since losing in Madrid Grand Finals, and it comes against a team that really wanted revenge against them in Team Heretics. While Team Heretics did make it past FPX, it looked like that maybe they weren't as strong as before. FPX were able to take a map off of them, but they came into this one really motivated and really wanting that revenge. And Gen.G were able to get a map, but an uncharacteristic throw on the side of Gen.G, and Heretics just clawing their way back into this one to make this one competitive and get the win. Starting with map 1, we have Abyss, which was a 13-11 win in favor of Gen.G. While this one was pretty close, it felt like Gen.G were always just a step or 2 ahead. Meteor frying on this one with 28 kills on the Yoru. Right now I really like the matches on Abyss because a lot of teams have different team comps, so we're really seeing how the meta is forming around this map. And this is a pretty good example, both teams having pretty different comps. Gen.G were up at the half 7-5, and Team Heretics did have a decent attack side, but not enough to get done. However, the tide would turn on Lotus, which was a 13-11 win in favor of Heretics. Heretics would win the first 2 rounds, but Gen.G would get the momentum back and end the half 8-4. But then Team Heretics with an immaculate attack side, Lotus everybody, every attack side is just lopsided. Gen.G only able to get 3 round wins on their defense side, Heretics just in control on that one, knowing they needed to get this map, knowing they needed to take this match. And that would continue on Bind, which was basically a flip of Abyss, where it was a pretty close match, but Heretics always were just a little bit of a step ahead, and that's why they won this one. 8-4 at the half in favor of Heretics, and then they got the 5 that they needed on their defense side. Lakia unfortunately not doing very well on this map, only 4 kills on the Sky. I know he's very disappointed in his performance at this tournament, and he's talked about it on Twitter, so don't hate on Lakia, he's a good player, it's just sometimes you don't have good tournaments. Meteor and Charon doing their job, but Texture not looking great, only 8 kills on this last map, -10 for him, not what you want from your star player. Whereas Benji, Fishy, Rhines, and Boo were all playing some pretty solid Valorant. Looking at the team MVPs on the side of Team Heretics, we have Boo, who went 55, 46, and 36 for +9. One of the better performances on the international stage for Boo there. And then for Gen.G, we have Meteor, who went 76, 48, and 15 for +28. So this was the start of the end for Gen.G. Unfortunately, we'll get to their match against Sentinels. Heretics come out of the group of death being the #1 seed. People thinking that it would be Gen.G being the #1 seed. Did not happen. Heretics get the revenge, and they're in playoffs. They look really solid right now. They might be the favorite to win this tournament. We don't know at this point, but there is a lot of good teams left, and Heretics, I think, are one of the better ones. Moving on, we have DRX versus Fnatic. This was a 2-0 win in favor of DRX, looking immaculate in this game. Feeding off the home crowd, DRX are now the last Korean team left at this tournament, so they're going to have the backing of the crowd the entire time. And Fnatic not looking fantastic in this match. It wasn't a complete blowout or anything on the side of DRX, but Fnatic looking like they might be going back to their choking ways in this match. Looking at map 1, we have Abyss, which was DRX's pick. It was a 13-11 win in favor of them. In control for most of the time, they had the lead at the half, and Fnatic would crawl the way back and tie the game early, but didn't really matter much. DRX would have a very strong attack side to get it done. Buzz specifically doing really well on the Jet. I like Jet on Abyss. I think it's a good map for her. I don't really love Fnatic's comp on this one. I've seen a lot of teams play Yoru on this map, and I don't think it's a bad pick by any means, but I think if you're just going to have one duelist, I think Jet is maybe the better pick for this map. However, moving on to Lotus, which was Fnatic's pick, they would get kind of stomped on this one. 13-6 in favor of DRX on a map that typically for Fnatic has been really good. They were the best in the world at Lotus in 2023. In 2024, it looked like they weren't good at it at all during the first part of the season, and then they started to really pick it up on that map. But unfortunately, this map did not go that way. This looked like mid-season Fnatic. While Fnatic would get the pistol, DRX would respond with 6-round wins in a row and end the half 7-5. So it is pretty close, but Fnatic were only able to get 1 on their attack side on a map that is definitely attacker-sided. Not what you want to see from Fnatic there. there. Looking at the team MVPs on the side of DRX, we have Buzz, who had a very good game for himself, going 47, 26, and 2 for plus 21. On the side of Fnatic, we have Alphair, who went 45, 28, and 9 for plus 17. So after a shaky map 1 against Kru, DRX looked much more locked in. They did end up beating Kru, and then they really took it to Fnatic, looking like the much better team for a lot of that match. Pretty solid tournament from DRX so far. I did question a lot of the roster's experience heading into this one, but that doesn't really seem like a problem right now. This roster looks very locked in. We'll see what they can do in playoffs, but they're going to have the backing of the home crowd. And Fnatic would get knocked down to the lower bracket in their group, but they did end up beating Kru, but we'll get to that match later. But there are definitely some concerning things that you can see in Fnatic's game right now, where it looks like maybe people shouldn't consider them the favorite, but we'll see how they go. We'll see how they do in this tournament. Moving on, we have a match that a lot of people said is one of the biggest upsets in VCT history, which I think is a little bit hyperbole for this one, but Trace did end up beating Leviatan 2-1. Now, before we get into this, I do have to mention that Mazzino did have some allegations against him from his ex-girlfriend. Just like with the DRX situation that happened a couple weeks ago, I'm not going to talk about it. I'm just informing you that I'm aware. We'll see if Mazzino ends up playing, but I don't want to get into anything. I'm not like a drama channel, and I also don't want to speak on something when we don't know all the facts yet. So we'll see what happens when it comes to that, but for now, Mazzino is on the Leviatan roster. When it comes to Trace Esports, they looked like the best Chinese team at this tournament so far. Right now, it's just them and Edward Gaming, and right now, they look a lot better than EDG. Trace does have a couple members from the Bilibili squad last year that did beat Gen.G, so maybe that's just what the group of guys does. Whenever they play against America's teams, they just end up upsetting them. And I do see a lot of people that do watch China being like, well, this shouldn't be seen as an upset because you guys don't watch China. And all I'm going to say is China hasn't done anything at the international level yet. Trace, while this is impressive, still haven't done much. They definitely look really good. I think saying this is one of the biggest upsets in VCT history is hyperbole, but at the same time, we don't know what these teams are going to do, so it's fair to say that this is an upset. And maybe this match was a case of Leviatan getting a little too comfortable being seen as the favorites. Starting with map 1 on Bind, it was a 13-10 win in favor of Trace. Pretty even for most of it, but Trace ended up having the edge at the end there. Heibei using the deadlock and seemingly got a lot of value out of it. Then on Sunset, Leviatan would turn the time with a solid defense side, 7-5 at the half, and then 6 round wins on their attack side to bring this one to a third map. So they narrowly avoid disaster on map 2, but ending up just preventing that disaster because they lost 13-5 on Ascent. Really bad attack side for Leviatan, only getting 2 round wins, and they were just in the first 4 rounds. Trace just really took control on their defense side. They're really good at Ascent. I don't think they've lost on that map in a while. 10-2 at the half, Leviatan would try to do something on their defense side, but it's just too big of a hill to climb, and Trace slows it out. Looking at the team MVPs on the side of Trace, we have Kai, who went 52, 42, and 14 for plus 10. And on the side of Leviatan, we have Ospas, who went 54, 43, and 12 for plus 11. So Trace end up being the top seed out of their group into playoffs. That's very impressive for a team that a lot of people didn't have expectations for. And while so far throughout Valorant's history, China hasn't done a lot at the international level, that doesn't mean that can change, and maybe Trace is the team to do it. Unfortunate loss for Leviatan, but they still have a chance to make it to playoffs if they win tonight. We'll see what happens with Mazzino. I doubt they don't play him, but it's a very tough situation for the org to be in. Moving on, we have G2 versus Edward Gaming. This would be a 2-1 win in favor of G2. EDG did look pretty good throughout this match, but G2 were able to get it done. Definitely not an easy match for G2 to win, but they stuck to their disciplined, smart style of Valorant, and it paid off in spades. Looking at map 1, we have Icebox, which was G2's pick, but it ended up being a 13-8 win in favor of EDG. Starting the match off strong by winning 6 rounds in a row and ending the half 9-3. G2 tried their best amount to come back, but only were able to get to 8. EDG take map 1. Then on Haven, EDG with a chance to close it out, but they could not do it. 13-11 win in favor of G2. 6-6 at the half, and then EDG would get to 11 rounds, but they couldn't just quite get to 12. 4 round wins to end this one to take the lead back and win it for G2. King looking pretty good on this map, getting 23 kills on the Neon. But as you can see with G2's scoreline, a lot of the players having very similar amount of kills because this team plays as a team. Then on Bind, it would be a similar story, but G2 would have the edge early. 9-3 at the half, and it looked like maybe the curse was about to come back, and then it didn't. Really solid attack side from EDG, winning 8 rounds on that attack, but G2 only needed the 4 rounds, and while EDG would have a couple of streaks here and there for rounds, G2 would get the one and stop the comeback. Looking at the team MVPs on the side of G2, we have Valen who went 54, 43, and 17 for plus 11. That's my IGL. And for EDG, we have Simon who went 58, 43, and 24 for plus 15. Definitely not a bad showing from EDG at all. They do go down to the lower bracket. We'll see if they end up making it out of their group. They do play Paper X next, which is a matchup that Paper X typically win, but Paper X are known for choking as well, so we'll see what happens with that one. And for G2, them being the #1 seed out of their group is no surprise to anybody that knows how good this team is. They look really locked in right now. They look primed for a deep run. We'll see if they can face some of the other top talent in the world. While they do play as a team, and they're a team that is known as a team that doesn't have a set superstar, but plays incredibly well together. While that style of play can get you far, can it win you a championship? We'll see if that ends up happening. Moving on, we have Sentinels versus FPX. So this was Sentinels bouncing back from their tough loss against Gen.G at the beginning of the bracket. And while FPX is a solid team, this is a matchup that I would expect Sen to win. Definitely not the performance that FPX wanted out of their players against Sentinels. Sentinels just knowing that they needed to get this one done, they locked in and they looked very good while doing it. They knew that this was a do or die match, and FPX looked pretty good against Heretics, so they knew if they didn't bring their A game, they would be out of the tournament. So they dominated this match, and then they had to play Gen.G, but we'll get to that one when we get to it. Looking at map 1, we have Bind, which was a 13-8 win in favor of Sentinels. FPX looking strong in the first half, getting 3 round wins in a row to start the match, but then Sentinels would respond with 4 of their own, but then FPX win 5 in a row. So it's 8-4 at the half. It looks like FPX has the edge over Sentinels, but then Sentinels just shut it down, 9 round wins in a row to close it out. Zekin was probably hearing all the bad things that people were saying about him online because he looked a lot better against FPX than he did against Gen.G, which would continue on Lotus, which would be a 13-5 win in favor of Sentinels. 9-3 at the half in favor of Sentinels. FPX would take the pistol, but Sentinels winning 4 in a row to get this one done. Not a surprise there. Looking at the team MVPs on the side of Sentinels, we have Zekin who went 39, 24, and 12 for plus 15. And on the side of FPX, we have Autumn who went 32, 31, and 1 for plus 1. So this was a solid win on the side of Sentinels looking back to their Madrid form. This was the bounce back that this team needed to get back into the groove of international play. They had lost their last 6 maps coming into this match, so they really needed to get it going, and they did it at the most opportune time. Disappointing loss for FPX yet again, going out early in a tournament. A lot of people had slightly higher expectations for this team, but I wasn't entirely convinced. But they did look decent against Heretics, so there was maybe some hope that they would be able to do something, but not able to do much against Sentinels. Moving on, we have Kru versus Bilibili Gaming. Kru did take this one 2-0, finally learning how to win a second map. They would forget how to do it yet again against Fnatic, but we're starting with this match. This was a solid win for Kru, needing this one with a do-or-die situation, not wanting to be like Energy last year, getting upset by the Chinese upstarts. Bilibili not looking fantastic during this tournament, and this was easy pick'ems for Kru. Getting their first win on the international stage in quite some time, but unfortunately that would be pretty short-lived, but we'll get to that match later. Looking at map 1, we have Lotus, which was a 13-9 win in favor of Kru. Pretty even at the half, 7-5 in favor of Bilibili, so they did have the edge. But then Kru would take the lead right back with a 5-round win streak, and then got the 3 that they needed beyond that. Then on Icebox, Kru had all the momentum, and they would not let it go. 9-3 at the half, they got the 4 that they needed on the second. Looking at the team MVPs on the side of Kru, we have Heat, who went 39, 18, and 7 for plus 21. And on the side of BLG, we have Flexen, who went 32, 30, and 12 for plus 2. So a solid win for Kru to extend their time at VCT Champions Seoul. Unfortunately for them, it wouldn't live much beyond that. But hey, they got a win. They can at least say that they took a game. And for BLG, this was kind of expected. Maybe some people thinking that all the memes from last year would repeat and they would be able to upset some teams. But that's not always how it works. I think that power has been passed on to Trace now. But we'll see if maybe next year BLG can do something at the internationals. Moving on to our second board, we have Team Vitality versus Talon. This was an elimination match. Whoever lost this one did go home. Both teams not having stellar starts to their tournaments and looking to not be going out early. Vitality would end up having the edge and taking this one 2-0, but Talon definitely had an opportunity to put this one in their favor, but they just weren't able to take it. Looking at map 1, we have Lotus, which was a 13-6 win in favor of Vitality. Very solid attack half for Vitality, ending at 10-2. Doing all that while Safe wasn't really having a great game. That's why I said of felt like Talon had the opportunity to jump back into this one, but it just didn't happen. They would get 4 attack round wins for them, but didn't really matter much. Vitality only needed 3. Then a pretty similar story on Sunset. Talon would have a decent first half this time, tied at 6 at the half, and Talon would take the pistol, but Vitality took it right back. Looking at the team MVPs on the side of Team Vitality, we have Kix went 40, 23, and 23 for plus 17. And on the side of Talon, Primi had a pretty good tournament, honestly. In this match, he went 35, 30, and 8 for plus 5. I know there's going to be people calling him overrated, but he was Talon's best player throughout the tournament. I don't think he was a problem at all. And also, he's like, this is his his first 5 matches of pro play ever, so it's fine. He's not overrated yet. I think there's a lot of hype around him, so we'll see if he can reach that, but give him some time. So Vitality looking more like their stage 2 selves in this match than they did in their first match. Maybe Trace is just a really hard team to beat, and people dunking on Vitality after their loss to them, maybe that was unjustified. We'll see how that ends up going, but Vitality looking better in this one. Talon ends their Champions debut not how they wanted it to. They do have some good players. Primi definitely looks promising. I think this is a team with some really talented shooters, just they don't have the team play or discipline there just yet. We'll see if they can work on that and be one of the powers in Pacific next year, but for now, their 2024 season is over. Moving on, we have PaperX versus Fut Esports. This was a 2-0 win in favor of PaperX, finally looking like a dominant team. Not the ending that Fut wanted to their tournament. They looked like a pretty decent team out of the EMEA region, but they weren't able to stop the W Gaming train. PaperX definitely haven't been looking as dominant as they once did, but maybe this match is what turns it around for them. Looking at map 1, we have Sunset, which was a 13-11 win in favor of PaperX. Fut doing what they can to make this one close. It was 7-5 at the half in favor of PaperX, so pretty close. And then Fut would end up taking the lead, but PaperX would swing the momentum back in their favor. Doing all this with 3 of their players going negative, so some impressive work by Divine Mind Freak here. Then on Bind, PaperX would take a dominant stance, winning the first 7 rounds in a row, really not giving Fut much, 9-3 at the half, and PaperX would get the 4 that they needed, 13-6 win in favor of PaperX. Looking at the team MVPs on the side of PaperX, we have Jane, who went 37, 30, and 13 for plus 7. And on the side of Fut, we have Yeta J, who went 36, 31, and 4 for plus 5. So as I said, this might be the match that gets PaperX back into their groove. They have a shot of making playoffs tonight against EDG, so we'll see how that goes for them, but if they can look like how they did in this match, they should have a decent chance. Disappointing end for Fut, looking like maybe a dark horse candidate, but much like in 2023, this team is good enough to make it to internationals, but not good enough to do much in them. We'll see what ends up happening for them, but for now, they're done. Alright, so now we have the last 2 matches to talk about. We have Sentinels versus Gen.G. And I just want to say, when I picked Sentinels to beat Gen.G at the beginning of this bracket, I was called so many things in my comment section. People were saying that I was wrong. People saying that I was an NA Glazer. People saying that even Sentinels fans coming in and be like, hey, thanks for picking us, but like, they're not going to win. And what happened? Sentinels did lose that game, but they won this one. So who's right now, baby? Who's right? Woo! North America, baby, let's go! All jokes aside, this was a very impressive match on the side of Sentinels. They were in control essentially the entire time. Gen.G really not looking great in this match. I don't know what happened to Gen.G in this one. Maybe they were riding a little bit too high off of being the favorites of this tournament. That seemed pretty evident in Team Heretics. Maybe they didn't take them as seriously, and maybe they didn't take Sentinels as seriously as they should have. Sentinels look a lot better against FPX than they did against Gen.G, and they came into this one with a clear plan, and it worked. This wasn't a complete blowout by any means, but Sentinels were just always in control. Gen.G really not looking like the team that nearly won back-to-back tournaments and playing on home ground. I mean, maybe the pressure got to them, but they lost, and they really probably shouldn't have. But as I said, Sentinels were in control for most of the time during this match. Pretty even first half, it was 7-5, so Sentinels did have the early edge. And then Sentinels win the pistol, they win 4 rounds in a row, they get really close to winning. Gen.G starts them out to come back, but it just seemed inevitable, and Sentinels would get this one. John QT with a very impressive 1.28 rating, and Zekin and Zelsis doing their part to keep Sentinels in this one. And then Icebox, which was Gen.G's pick, Sentinels would dominate on, and this is the same map that Sentinels ended up beating Gen.G in Grand Finals to take Madrid. So even though this typically isn't a map that Sentinels are great on, it seems like Gen.G should just never let them go here, because it just doesn't work out for them. Sentinels immediately taking the momentum away from Gen.G, just beating the wind out of them 5 rounds in a row. Gen.G were starting to look kind of crushed and looking like, oh wait, we could actually lose this one. So they would tie the game, but it didn't end up meaning much because Sentinels would end the half 7-5 and then win another 4 in a row. Gen.G would steal a round on their defense side, but Sentinels had the momentum and they got 2 in a row to win it. And Gen.G, the favorites of the tournament, who I thought were probably favorites of the tournament, who many people thought were favorites, who people were just saying that they should be able to just walk over Sentinels. I thought they were the favorites, but it was also like, don't count Sentinels out. When Sentinels are in big moments, they tend to perform. We've seen it throughout this year. We've seen them do it against Gen.G this year, and now they win this one. Looking at the team MVPs on the side of Sentinels, we have Zekken, who went 40, 28, and 11 for plus 12, making me feel much more validated by putting him in my top 5 players at this tournament. And then on the side of Gen.G, Texture didn't have a bad game at all. He went 41, 30, and 6 for plus 11. So he was frying, but unfortunately the rest of his team couldn't get a lot going. So Sentinels end up making it out of the group of death. Some very impressive work by their players. Definitely looking like a shell of their former selves in the first match against Gen.G, but they really turned it around recently. As I said, this is a team that performs well in big moments. This is a huge moment. This was, aside from Grand Finals, the biggest moment of their year. They needed to get the win. They needed to get it done, and with just some impeccable work from all their players, they were the better team. Really unfortunate that we can't see Gen.G in this tournament anymore, but that's how the format works. That's the group that ended up picked. Gen.G should have been favorites. They should have walked away with this one. They should have beat Heretics. But as they say, shoulda, woulda, coulda. They are out of the tournament, and DRX are the only Korean team left, and the home crowd probably very disappointed in this result. So with this one, does that make Sentinels the favorites to win this tournament? Not so fast, but we'll see what ends up happening with the playoff bracket. Once the playoff bracket is set, I will be doing my pick'ems for it, so we'll see what I end up thinking. Moving on, we have Fnatic versus Kru. This one ended up being a 2-1 win in favor of Fnatic. Kru doing what they do best in 2024, which is win the first map and then lose the next 2. Kru looked really dominant early on in this match against Fnatic, but Fnatic turned the tides on them and it seemed relatively easy. While they did lose the first map, as soon as Fnatic got the momentum at the second half of that first map, it seemed like they just had it all and they just ran with it. Looking at that first map, we have Sunset, which was a 13-11 win in favor of Kru. 7-5 at the half in favor of Kru, and then Kru would win 3 rounds in a row, getting to 11 rounds, but then Fnatic would start to mount a comeback. 6 round wins in a row would make this one pretty tight. Kru would get to match point, Fnatic would get another one, and then Kru would end up being able to close it out. But as I already said, it seemed like all the momentum was in favor of Fnatic. They would win the pistol, Kru would steal the bonus, winning 5 rounds in a row, 4 rounds in a row for Fnatic to end it out, and then only 3 round wins on their defense side for Kru to end the map. And then Fnatic establishing dominance once again on Lotus, 13-5 win for them. Pretty solid defense side for Fnatic, 8-4 at the half, and then didn't give Kru much on their defense side either. Looking at the team MVPs on the side of Fnatic, we have Durka, who went 65, 42, and 11 for plus 23. Sorry, Kesnet, but it seems like Durka is the better duelist. Sorry. And on the side of Kru, we have Shy, who went 49, 42, and 16 for plus 7. I really like Shy. I think he's a great player. I really hope that Kru keeps him. He was one of Kru's better players throughout the 3 matches that they played at Champs this year, so I hope we get to see him here again at some point. So those are all 10 matches that we have to talk about. So as I already mentioned, there are 2 matches that are tonight. I will be talking about those in a video tomorrow. Sorry that the uploads have been pretty inconsistent and kind of slow this week. It's been a very busy week. I've had quite the last 2 weeks, so hopefully we're back on track for videos. I'm going on vacation again at the end of the month, so hopefully I'll be able to film a lot of videos before that, so that when I do go on vacation for those 2 weeks, you guys will not be starved for content. So thank you all for watching. Please let me know what you thought of all these matches in the comment section down below. Please click like if you enjoyed this video. Thank you all very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.